Hey guys, Mike with Gettin Greasy Garage. We're back putting the C4 Corvette together. This is part 3, the reassembly of the hub assembly, the axle, dog bones, sway bar, control link, all the above. We did the bushings already. We also did the U-joints in the axle. I have to grab that before we stick it in. So back to your strut control rod. So you'd have two different size bushings, i.e. the hole, the sleeve. And the reason for the big ones is these washers that go on the camber adjustment bolt. So they just fit in on each side of the bigger sleeve. They will not fit in the other side, so you have to put them on the bigger bushing. And we grab our camber bolt. We talked about that. Only goes together. Well, I guess you could get the washer on wrong, but it wouldn't tighten down if you did. So put your washers on your bushing. On this one, you can see how the bushing sits to the downside. And then you just work it in. You can tap it in. Now remember, these are aluminum, so you don't want to beat the snot out of them. Just tap it in close. Your camber bolt is pointed on the end. So when you go in with that, it will self-align everything. But it doesn't hurt to get them close. And go through, and you can see, in a second, grab a wrench. You turn the camber bolt to get it. It's got a slot that it rides in, and it'll set in. Jam up my stool, and then you can put your other washer on to the other side. That fits in your notches. And I set my nut somewhere. Oh, right here. Get it on there. You don't tighten any of this down yet. Just get it in close, because you need everything to move around while you're putting it all together. Okay, now if you watch, when I turn the cam bolt, this will move in or out. Right now, see, it moves in and out. That's how it sets the camber of the wheel. And if you didn't mark yours when you're done with this, or if you change wheel offset, different width wheels, it's a good idea to have an alignment done when you're through. This would fall under a 4-wheel alignment. I would assume that most alignment shops, if all you messed with was the rear, that they would align the rear only. So next piece is our knuckle down here, which you have a big bolt. It goes through here. Your knuckle has this bearing hub and the backing plate. Everything else, they're aluminum, so they're not horrendously heavy. You just have to fight them on. Let me set the bolt down. Get it on there. Grab a hammer. Tap it in. Come on, baby. Being stubborn. Anyway, I'll get this on here and bring you guys back. So, once you get the sleeve in there, and it's tight because everything's new, you can use an alignment punch or what have you. Get your bolt in. Whoops, didn't need that anyway. And then you just take your nut and your bolt. If you don't lose the nut, it goes through. I'll find my nut real quick. Oh, there it is. Okay. And again. There's washers that go on each side of this aluminum stuff so that the steel bolt doesn't chew into the aluminum housing. So now I'll get moving around here and get everything else set up, and we'll move on to the next piece. Alright guys, so we got the axle shaft in, or half shaft, and the yoke straps are torqued. Make sure and torque those, and always put a little dab of blue Loctite on them just for security. We've got our knuckle on, or hub, or spindle, or whatever nomenclature you want to use. Next thing I do is just feed the axle shaft into it. And it'll feed right up through. You grab, it'll hang there. And then you grab your big washer and your nut for your axle. Start them on. It's not going nowhere. I mean, it can't fall off. It can fall down, but we'll run our nut down now. We're not going to tighten anything up right now. Okay. So, next thing, I like to do the dog bones, and there's a whole separate video on the dog bone bushings. A couple things to remember on the dog bones. The bolt goes through the hub. On each side of the dog bone bushing you get a washer. So you get it semi-lined up, and cameraman can go, I guess, on the other side of me and kind of watch. It's pretty self-explanatory. And you just get them lined up. And then push the bolt through. Unfortunately, you can't get to the back side of the bolt to tap it through. So there's two of these. Once the bolt's through, make sure you put the washers on. So we'll get the dog bones on. I'll bring you guys back and show you everything. Alright guys, so got the knuckle on, the dog bones are on. Again, just start the nuts on them. You don't have to tighten anything up at this point. Next thing I want to get in is the sway bar. I got the bolt and the nut here. The biggest thing you need to pay attention to on any of this is facing the bolts the right direction. That way they don't hit on any other components. Everything's pretty tight tolerance inside of here. So I got our sway bar hooked back up. Come on, nut, get on there. Okay. Next is our link. This gives it stability front to rear. It's just a tie rod end. Slide it through, put your nut on. And if you're doing this in your driveway, this is all possible to do without a lift. I use a lift because I have one to do it, but so that's on. Next thing is, and I'll come underneath to do it, is our ride height bolt. They've got a name. These are what tie the spring to the knuckle. You want to make sure you got a bushing on it. Just wraps down through. You've got a bushing. In our case, we got some washers because we played with ride height. There's a nut on there. Okay. Well, anyway, and then the last thing to go in, of course, would be the shock, but you want to leave the shocks out until everything's done. That way you can torque all the fasteners. Look up all these torques because this is aluminum. You're going to want them torqued properly. And I pulled all of my torques out of the service manual, but that's how many different torques there is just for all of this. So don't go by this. These torques apply to an 85, to this car. Look up your own torque specs, torque everything. Fighting those dog bone bolts back in is that's the hardest part of this. U-joints and bushing replacement, that isn't bad. Pretty well summed it up. You will have to hook up e-brake cables and of course just put all the brakes back together and all that. There's tons of brake videos out there. I'm not going to show you guys repetitive stuff. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'm happy to answer them for people. And this is not expensive stuff to do, and it makes all the difference. When this is all bolted back together, you'll be able to grab that back wheel, and there's going to be no side-to-side or diagonal or up or down, in-out movement. And it should definitely drive better and even handle better. So that's pretty well it for doing this kind of work. And it's not magic, it's not anything really tricky. If you're working on one of these cars, I highly recommend that you get the factory GM service manual. I've been doing this stuff for 30 years and I find stuff in there that I didn't know, and it makes it a big help in getting these cars repaired. So, you know, look into that. You can find factory service manuals on eBay. There's companies that have them. If it's your sort of thing, you can find them in PDF file too. I'm a paper book guy. I like to turn pages and stuff, so, you know, but having that information and all those diagrams and drawings and stuff really makes it go a lot easier when you have to put this stuff back together. But again, I can't say this enough times. Make sure you torque all this stuff. There's a lot of forces on here. I I'm not responsible for you putting your car together wrong. I'm just giving you the rough idea of what it takes to do this job. So follow your service manuals. If you're not comfortable doing it, take it to somebody that you trust that can do it for you. And that's about all for me. I'm going to just button up the brakes and the other things here, get the wheels back on it. So, alright guys, well thanks for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one.